So our final race action of the day here at Alton Park is for the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK. They had their first race earlier on today, and this one, much as we saw from the Civic Cup a little while ago, is guaranteed to be just as, if not more exciting, because it is a reversed grid race to round out the day's action here at Alton Park. So we should be in for another absolute thriller. The championship continuing to twist and turn with every race that goes by. That win earlier on for Jack Constable has helped him actually move up now into 7th place in the championship. At the top though, still Lewis Kent, number 38, who leads the way in the points. 175 points for him, plays 129 in 2nd place for Bradley Kent, and 126 in 3rd for Max Hart, with Dan Kirby 4th on 121, and 5th place in the points on 106 points is Bruce Winfield, who had another solid race in the first one earlier on today. As I said, they reversed grid for this one, so there's always a bit more chance for things to kick off in this one, and for people to maybe be able to take some bigger points out of their rivals than they were able to do in the earlier race. It's also a slightly longer race, this one, 25 minutes as opposed to the 20 minutes that race 1 ran for, so slightly longer. There's been a bit of debate amongst the drivers between races about that race length, because I'm sure you've all noticed here at Alton Park it is quite warm today, and the drivers are saying it's even hotter inside the cars, but 25 minutes is a fairly average touring car length race, and I'm sure the drivers will be up for the challenge then, and it does make their lives harder though, no doubt about it. It means that tyre management becomes a bigger issue, brake management. Managing your mental state over the course of a 25-minute race in this heat is pretty tricky between races too, that they've gone for some pretty big setup changes actually. A lot of them weren't particularly happy with how their cars were handling in race 1, and so they were very, very keen to get a few adjustments made to the car ahead of this second race. So the cars are heading out onto the grid now. They'll sit on the grid for a few minutes and then they'll go around for their final green flag lap. So we're just about 5 minutes away probably from the start of the race. The grid, for what it's worth, is headed by Dan Kirby, because the top 6 finishers from race 1 have been reversed to form the grid for race 2. So it's Dan Kirby on pole with Lewis Kent, the championship leader, alongside him. Max Hart is 3rd. He lost out on 3rd place in race 1 to Bradley Kent because of a late mistake down at the chicane, but he starts ahead now of Bradley as a result of that. Brad 4th, Alex Morgan 5th, and the race 1 winner Jack Constable is 6th. Bruce Winfield and Andy Wilmot make up the 4th row of the grid, ahead of Jack Depper, who really enjoyed his first taste of TCR competition earlier on, and Danny Crevet rounding out the top 10. Hugo Cook and Jamie Sturgis are on the 6th row. Alex Kite down on row 7. His car was overheating in the early race, the Vauxhall Astra, and so he'll be hoping that they've managed to sort that problem out. He is another driver that threw quite a few setup changes, and he will start from 13th alongside Mark Smith. And then the 2 non-finishers, Will Butler went off on the last lap down at the hairpin as he was battling with Bruce Winfield for 6th position, and Darren Lewis starts at the back after his car had a lot of grass on the grille, so he'd obviously been off the road. The car, I think, was overheating, and he pitted for repairs, went back out again, but then came back to the pits for good a lap later. So Lewis hoping to get the Mercedes out on track for this one. So an interesting race ahead of us here, I think, then, with the temperatures still, well, I'd say higher now than they have been all day long. And Dan Kirby up there on the front row of the grid. We know Dan has race-winning potential. He won a race earlier on this season at Brands Hatch. Paul O'Neill back alongside me here in the comms box. What are your thoughts on Dan Kirby's chances to grab a win this time? He's got the championship leader alongside him. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, thanks for switching my mic on there.
You could have got away with that, Paul.
Nearly. So it's probably best for everyone if you leave the mic switched off. Yeah, Dan Kirby, absolutely awesome. I think he should have a spring in his step after what we've seen from Brands Hatch. Absolutely grand. Great team with PMR running him. Good people around him. I reckon he's got a battle ahead of him, but who's not to say he can win this, you know? But because if you look behind, like you were just saying about the 2 Kent brothers and obviously Max Hart, you've got to say that they are not going to really care what he is doing up front. So hopefully he can get a gap and he can crack on for his own sake. But yeah, I'm starting to be really impressed by these guys at the front. They're starting to really look very mature, you know, they're starting to take the errors out of their ways, and it's just really nice to see some hard, close racing now. That could all come to a very much an end in a minute, but we see just at the back of the grid, the guys just crossing those tyres. So it's just always, for me as a driver, I know that you're probably looking at them tyres thinking they should be so hot. Why do they have to put the rears on the front or front on the rear? And it's just because you will never ever get the rear temperatures up to the temperature they need to be if you haven't got the load that is going through them. All front wheel drive at the minute, these TCR cars especially, and that is all it's about. It's just getting the right amount of temperature across the front and rear axle. So that, and you can see they kind of look like they're taking the time, but they're not. They'll have a time limit, and they have to be off them jacks at a certain amount of time. There's a little fight going on. I don't know what corner that's at. But oh, that's the entrance for the lodge. There's a little fight there. So if you guys listen on the tannoy, stop fighting near the fence, or we'll have you thrown out. But our live stream people were just watching you beat each other up. Anyway, Andy, sorry I'm cracking on there, mate.
Such occurrences are a rare thing up in this part of the world. Back to the racing, if I may. The points situation, Paul, is quite interesting because on the face of it, Lewis Kent has this big championship lead. We're more than halfway through the season now. Surely he's got one hand on the championship trophy. But something Bradley Kent reminded me of after race 1 is that they have introduced dropped scores this year, which is a commentator's worst nightmare. Basically, the drivers dropped their 2 worst finishes of the year. And when you actually drop the points, Brad is only, about 27 points behind Lewis Kent, which all of a sudden, with 25 points available for a race win, starts to look a little bit more doable. And it really does now illustrate the pressure that Lewis Kent is under, partly actually because he's had such a consistent season, so he's dropping more points.
Yeah, that is very interesting you say that, because you kind of, especially when you've got a 50-point lead on paper, like he did at the start of the event, Lewis, you know, he can just say, oh, mate, I'll just finish 4th, 3rd, whatever I get, I'll just finish, and it's all good. But in your mind, you know that could come back and bite you. That's why especially in a tin top championship like this, you always have to attack. You know, attack is the best form of defence. You have to just get on with the job. And to be fair, both the Kent brothers are very good at that. So, yeah, I am just really excited because we thought it was a 2-horse race, this, and it just really isn't. You know, it really isn't, is it?
Well, we thought it was a 2-horse race, but we thought the 2 horses were Max and Lewis, a very common story in motorsport these days, it seems. But it's actually Bradley that's emerging, really, as his brother's biggest challenger. I mean, I know we've waxed lyrical about Brad all season long, but I cannot say enough about how impressed I am with him. This is his first season racing at this level, and he came straight in, out-qualified his brother, the reigning champion of all people, at the very first attempt. And I think on raw pace has been, maybe his racecraft could take a bit of improving, although having said that, he got past Max Hart in the previous race with a good move. So Bradley Kent, for me, is the star of the season so far.
Yeah, no, I would go with you on that. You know, I do see, you know, he's so raw. His pace is so raw. And I know he's been racing for a few years in MX-5s and things. I remember seeing him and thinking, he's pretty special, this kid. But he's come alive in this TCR Championship. And you can actually see all these cars weaving for the viewers back at home. You do see, and I think it was a Hyundai, I don't know who it was, it might have been Max Hart, but there's so much energy going through the car there, trying to get them rears up to temperature, that the cars were nearly snaking off the road temperature. It doesn't actually matter. You need to get them into that window. Somebody that needs to get them into that window is that front row starter, Dan Kirby, because he could win this race. He had some good pace in that last race, but it seemed to just drop away as the laps went on.
Yeah, he made some good moves early on, didn't he? What he also made at Brands Hatch last time was a really good start in all 3 races. So his chances of getting to Old Hall Corner first are pretty high, but then he's going to have arguably the 3 fastest drivers in the championship hot on his heels, trying to find a way past him. Don't count out Jack Constable either. I mean, he was the pace setter in the end. He starts 6th this time. What progress do you think he can make?
Yeah, and again, I think he's another person who can really get, you know, to the front of the grid and really put pressure on these guys at the front. But again, I think there's a lot of drivers out there that are still trying to figure out the machinery. Jack Depper, you know, people like that. Andy Wilmot, you know, that's quite a good battle actually between Wilmot and Depper. These kind of guys are just edging away, getting their track time under their belts. And yeah, Alex Morgan though definitely has the pace to upset these leaders.
Yes, Alex, another driver who wasn't happy with his setup in the earlier race, so he's thrown another load of changes at the car between races, and we'll see how that Cupra goes. It was strong in the early stages, wasn't it? Made a bit of a break at the start and then really faded later. Oh, they're getting a bit fancy, some of these camera ops out there, aren't they? That was some pretty artsy stuff there as they come through the heat haze towards us at Lodge. Great sight the cars make though, Paul. I mean, it's nice to have so many of them, but getting up close and personal to them in the paddock, something we hope the spectators will be able to do in the very near future as well. They really are impressive pieces of kit and beautifully turned out.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? As we see someone dart for the pits. Who?
I think. Yeah, Lewis is there. Bradley Kent into the pit lane. So this is drama. Bradley Kent then, second in the championship, is in the pit lane before the race even gets underway. Now, can't tell you from here what the issue is. The car has gone straight up on the jacks, Paul.
Yeah, front left it looks like. I was just looking. The front left of the car was being pushed by one of the mechanics. Got the doors open. Anyway, that's done news. He's out the way, but it's going to be a race start when these guys all get lined up. Something definitely awry, but that's a big story.
Bonnet going up as well now, so he might be a non-starter. That plays beautifully into the hands of Jack Constable then, who now has a clear grid space ahead of him. Here we go then. The red lights are on. We go racing again here at Alton Park. Dan Kirby on the pole position gets a decent start, but here comes Alex Morgan. Alex Morgan from absolutely nowhere is second already going into the first corner, but Lewis Kent is going to get the advantage. Kent leads them through the right-hander. Morgan second, Kirby third, Max Hart on out of dust that the Irishman has kicked up, but I think they all came out the other side. What's the order? It's Lewis Kent, it's Morgan second, but joint second essentially, with Dan Kirby trying to go around the outside, and Max Hardy's still there in fourth, and now challenges for third down Lakeside.
The leader's door flew open. Or was it his passenger side? His passenger side door was open in the 30. I'm sure I've seen it open and shut as he come through Cascades, so let's keep an eye on that, but I did see that door come open.
What is going on? Right then, over hilltop we go. Lewis Kent weaving around, possibly to see if that door is shut now, but Alex Morgan is all over him, heading down into his lobs for the first time. Max Hart trying to go around the outside of Dan Kirby, but can't do it. Lewis Kent is under pressure here. Alex Morgan again looks really feisty in the early stages, and he's all over the back of the leader, heading out of Knickerbrook for the first time. Jack Depper there, right in behind Andy Wilmottley. And Bradley Kent's car, by the way, has vanished from the pit lane, Paul. I'm hoping that means he's back on track.
Yeah, hopefully that'll be good. I didn't hear it come past unless they pushed it out the way the other side, but that was interesting from the leader. Maybe the door opened and it shut itself because of the violent exit of Cascades, but we'll see what goes on with that. At the minute, he's all good, but look at that. Morgan, what a great start, but he is stuffed, isn't he?
Oh yes, because Max Hart is now at the inside of Dan Kirby. Morgan is really holding Kirby up, and Hart is now alongside him for third place. Then the Hyundai up the inside of the Cupra. Into Old Hall Corner they go. Hart will go through behind them. Winfrey markers go flying through Old Hall Corner as they again use liberal amounts of grass on the inside of the first turn. Lewis Kent then 1.4 seconds clear of Alex Morgan second, but Morgan's days in second place I think might be numbered. Max Hart looks really quick here, and Max will be spurred on here by the fact that Lewis Kent, his big championship rival, there, look, is getting away out front.
Look at that door. Look at the passenger side door on the 38. The leader's door is moving. I don't know whether it's the door frame, I don't know whether it's the window. Something on that passenger side is where the 38, the actual 38 number is. You can see the door keeps opening. I don't know whether it's just not locked properly, but if you see, it might come into shot this time. But there's definitely movement. When it's at high speed, it might just be air catching the frame and it's pushing out. Our camera's trying to show you viewers at home that it's very difficult, but I'll tell you now, that is moving. I hope he just gets on with this race.
That's got to be a distraction, hasn't it? And of course, if the clerk of the course spot... There it is. Yeah, absolutely saw it then, going through past the water tower. So if the clerk of the course sees that, that surely is going to be something they could drag him into the pit lane to repair. So... wow, drama indeed for the championship leader. He is leading the race, but if this passenger door keeps on swinging open, that might mean that he has to go into the pit lane. Dan Kirby's up the inside of Max Hart, meanwhile, for third place, out of Lodge Corner. Bit of Morse code being tapped there onto the rear bumper of the Hyundai, but Max hangs on. Kent then, fastest lap of the race. He leads the way by a second and a half now over Alex Morgan second. Max Hart third, and Dan Kirby goes up the inside of him into Old Hall Corner. That was a really committed move. Max somehow hangs on, and that backs Kirby up into Jack Constable. These three tied together now as they head for Cascades.
Oh, this is a proper tin top race. This is what I get up for of a weekend. This is awesome stuff. No quarter given, none taken, no big impacts into anyone. It's great stuff. Please let it be like this all of the time. But at the minute, the leader, it's not giving him any problems. This is it, a 29 dead as a fastest lap for Bradley Kent.
Not slowing him down, no, but I do suspect that might still become an issue later on if it persists, but we will see. Alex Morgan, by the way, in the first sector this time was fractionally quicker than the race leader as they plunge down into the braking zone at his lobs. Up the inside goes Constable on Kirby. That was a brilliant move and a difficult place to make that dive work. work.
Really was, wasn't it? Left the door wide open, did Dan Kirby. Look at the understeer. He just got it a bit wrong on the exit, picks up all the dust, chokes the tyres up, and the car just couldn't turn in. But this is where it's going to be action aplenty, especially from 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th. This is proper.
This race is 5 minutes longer than the first race, Paul, so tyre and brake management and car management in general should be more of a priority. You're not telling me this lot of preserving the tyres or brakes. This is even more frenetic racing than we had at the start of race 1. So is that going to present an issue for some of the drivers that are really going hard now in 15 minutes' time?
They didn't get the memo, did they? And when you're in the second race of the day, look at that for a move. Can he get it done? No, thinks better of it. But, Ted Kirby was looking in his mirror and had a quick think about actually not going for that apex because he thought Winfield was there. Fair play.
So, Lewis Kent leads, 1.6 seconds the gap now, back to Alex Morgan in second. Max Hart is a further 1.6 seconds back in third, ahead of now Jack Constable fourth, with Kirby fifth and Bruce Winfield sixth. Couldn't quite get past Kirby there into the first corner. Dan's doing that thing again, isn't he, where he started off strong, and now once we've got a couple of laps into the race, he's starting to fade a bit. Just behind those two, by the way, Andy Wilmot and, I keep wanting to say Tim Docker, it's Jack Depper now in that blue and white VW Golf. Depper getting stuck in again. He really enjoyed himself after his first race, and now he's really getting stuck in again with Andy Wilmot. These two have been tied together all day.
Yeah, they have, haven't they? I just want to correct something I said. I said it was Lewis Kent, the leader, with the fastest lap. It's actually his brother on a 28.6, and that is quite a bit quicker than anybody else. So what a shame. What could have been for Bradley, because he is rapid.
Well, and we said this at Silverstone, didn't we? First race of the year, Bradley Kent went out, stuck it on the front row, puncture at turn 1. So what could have been has really been the story of his season, hasn't it?
Very true. It's been unbelievable for him. A real shame. And again, I mean, that's just such a fast lap that he's pulled out the bag there. But they're starting to go green and purple in all the sectors now, all the other drivers. So these tyres have got a window, and it does seem like after a couple, 3 laps, they start to really get into their window of operation.
Yeah, we are 6.5 minutes in, and this is about where we started to see good lap times in qualifying earlier on this morning, wasn't it? So it does seem to take them a while to get into that window. That's Andy Wilmot running wide, I think, and that's Jack Depper going past him down into Cascades. So Jack Depper picks up another place there. That puts him 7th place. A couple of drivers have said to me today that the best way to overtake here at Alton Park is not necessarily by making a dive, but to force a mistake out of the car in front, and that seems to be what Depper did there.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? And Depper will be so happy that he's not had to race his way past Wilmot, because that would be difficult. Is that him in the pits again?
Brad Kent back in, yeah.
That's something that's going wrong with that left front. They were kicking that front.
Lot of smoke, Paul. Lot of smoke from the left front corner.
I think something's sticking, isn't it, brakes-wise? But he's still got a good lap in. If he keeps that lap time with whatever failure that he's got at that front left, it'd be very impressive. More impressive is his brother Lewis, who's had that passenger side door flailing about, and it seems to have either rectified itself or just status quo.
Yes, and hasn't caught the attention of the clock of the course. Dear me, that was close. That was Danny Crevet trying to get back past Jack Depper. So Depper's fallen back behind Wilmot somewhere whilst we were looking out of the window probably. And Crevet almost tagging Depper as they went over Clay Hill. He's got Will Butler right behind him.
Do you know what was nice about that, though? You've seen brake lights,
yeah,
and you don't usually see that. You'll just see someone use the rear of the car to push them up the hill, which is pretty dangerous. So hats off to you, Crevet. That was, I was going to say cravat off to you, Crevet. No?
Oh, dear. not your best work, Paul.
Long day, mate.
Hasn't it just been? Yes, so back through they go then. Crevet, actually, I've been quite impressed with Crevet. He's been quietly getting on with his business today. He finished 10th in the previous race. He's running in 9th this time around. Certainly a step forward from Silverstone, where we last raced with us. And I know he's been getting a bit of tutoring, actually, from this man here, Max Hart. And if ever there was someone to teach you how to pedal one of those Hyundais quickly, I'd say Max is your man. And Max said that by the end of a day of tutoring with him, Danny looked like a completely different driver.
Yeah, and I must admit, this is one of the most difficult circuits you'll come to, and his pace has been impressive for a rookie who's having a go. He's been very good, so fair play. And, you know, nice to see a youngster in Max Hart in the 101 car helping out someone who's a bit older than him, and yeah, doing a great job.
Yeah, Max, very talented driver, no doubt about it. He's actually getting back away from Jack Constable now in 3rd place, so 3rd and 4th separating a little bit. I have to say, I'm also quite impressed with Alex Morgan's pace in this race, because he's not dropped off at this stage, nearly 10 minutes into the race, to the extent that he had by mid-race in race 1. So I think the setup changes they've made to that Power Max Racing Cupra in second have really worked. Bruce Winfield goes grass tracking there out of Druid's corner, but manages to get it back on the island. But yeah, Morgan's pace is not quite as good as Lewis's, but he's hanging on in there better than in race 1.
Yeah, definitely. And I must admit that you can see they're to-ing and fro-ing, actually, Morgan and Hart in lap times across the sector. So, yeah, good stuff from them. I think Hart has just banged in the quickest lap of the day. He's nicked it off Bradley, isn't he? So Hart is looking very, very fast. And he was actually 2/10 quicker than Morgan there. So he's going to be on the back of Morgan pretty quickly.
Battle here for 12th position. For Hugo, yes, for 12th position. Because... No, hang on, something... sorry, yes. We've switched which battle we were watching for now. So you got Crevet and Butler, and then just behind them is the Alex Kite and Hugo Cook battle, which did, a lap ago, have a Mercedes between them. But Darren Lewis appears to have vanished somewhere in the 285 Mercedes, which is what was throwing me. But Hugo Cook is up the inside of Alex Kite now. Audi versus Opel as they come over the top of the hill. Very international flavour to this battle. And that Audi had good pace over hilltop. Goes up the inside. He's going to go through as Will Butler tried to do the same there to Danny Crevet.
Yeah, he's done it good and proper there, isn't he? Good move that by Hugo. Really impressed with him early on in the year, and then he just seems to have gone steady away, and now he's coming back and starting to get back into the fight where he belongs, really. 16 years of age.
I know, it's disgusting, isn't it? Racing drivers, they do get younger and younger every year, and I'm not a fan of it. Through Lodge Corner comes Alex Morgan. Now, on this lap, 2/10 quicker than the leader in Sector 1, another 10th quicker in Sector 2, so this is going to be a quicker lap for Morgan. Yeah, gets the gap down to 1.4 seconds. He's been reeled in by Max Hart, who is the fastest man on the track. So, what's going on here then, Paul? We're into the middle part of the race. I was going to ask, are we seeing some tyre conservation here from Lewis Kent? Certainly not from Max Hart, who was all over the grass out of Old Hall, but is this Kent maybe now just managing this gap, or is this something for Lewis to be concerned about?
Well, if he sees how fast Hart is, he might want to just start to either up that pace a touch or just start to manage properly, because I'm telling you one thing, Max Hart, well, you can see he's just nearly outbraked himself. Actually, a couple of them ran wide there, haven't they? Max Hart is actually just flat out. He knows no other way. So he is definitely one to keep an eye on. He's the only person in that last lap to go into the 28. Everyone else in the 29s and 30s. Oh, but as I say that, he nearly went from in the 30s to in the barrier backwards.
That was a brilliant catch, though, through the middle part of the Hislop chicane. That Hyundai has, from the start of the season, looked very oversteery, hasn't it? I think it's just the way that Max likes to drive the car, but the front of the car has so much more grip than the rear, and it's very easy for them to slide. And Jack Constable doing the same thing. But that is the way that you set a car up if you're worried about the front tyres wearing over a 25-minute race. You try and take as much of the pressure off the front tyres by making it a bit more oversteery, and so it makes the car a handful, but actually is probably better for the tyres.
Yeah, not better for your art, though.
No, well, no.
There, that concerns me. Two cars with that much oversteer, there is either dust on the circuit, they're all running wide now. So I think, like you rightly said, I think people are just starting to push that envelope of grip, and now it's being put over the line. That's a nice move. What's gone on there? Wilmot looked like he just let him through.
I think he might have done, because he saw Jack Depper had committed to the move, but Wilmot is now fighting back again. This then is for 7th place, and Andy Wilmot gets him back. So I think Wilmot realised then that Depper wasn't going to get the car stopped properly and thought, you have the position going into the corner, I'll get it straight back down the next straight, and that's exactly what he did. So as you were there for 7th, Andy Wilmot in the Cupra ahead of Jack Depper in the goal, but then Wilmot locks up once, twice into the hairpin, gets it stopped, but it wasn't pretty, and he just about keeps Depper at bay.
I think he's put more bias to the rear of that car, because you could see he got to the apex absolutely fine with the rear locked up, so there's quite a bit of rotation in that car, and it just made the front of the car ramp up, and the rear couldn't actually catch up with what the front was doing. So there must be more brake bias being put to the rear of that car, because Depper seemed to have better brakes but didn't make the corner. So yeah, something happening within that car. Great little scrap that between them two.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Just under 12 minutes to go then, so we're into the second half of the race now. Lewis Kent about to come through to complete the 9th lap of that race as he makes his way out through Lodge Corner, then back across the start-finish line. This time he has gapped Alex Morgan a bit. Morgan's next battle is going to be for 2nd, I think, isn't it, rather than for the lead. That's Danny Crevet off. Where is he off is the question. I want to say that's the hairpin, you know, up at the top of the circuit. I think he's pulled pulled off, spun off, I'm not sure, but I think that's about where it was.
I'm trying to think, was that Cascades? It looked like there was an access road to the...
Carnaman, no, hang on. Car number 14 never made it to the end of Sector 2, but it did make it to the end of Sector 1. So I think it is the hair. We might see, actually, as the leaders come through here on our live pictures up through the hairpin. I think you're going to see that Hyundai to the left of shots, just off shot maybe. But I've spent enough days here at Alton Park, and I've wandered up to that bit of the track enough that I recognise the scenery up at the hairpin. I do think that's where Grevet's gone off. But the point I was about to make is that Max Hart is now less than a second behind Alex Morgan, and Hart is still pretty much matching the lap times being set by the race leader. So if Hart gets into second quickly here, he might have a shot at the win.
I'll tell you where Crevet is. He is actually up past Clay Hill, I reckon. It's just before Druids, I reckon. I recognise the access road. It's somewhere around here, that car, because on our TSL map you could just see it there.
It might have just been there, actually, in the background.
Yeah, so he's pulled off. I don't think he's spun off, because if you spin off there, you're going off at high speed. So he's pulled off.
Yeah, you don't have a small shunt at that part of the circuit, do you? So hopefully not in too dangerous an area, because the last thing Lewis Kent wants here is a safety car with 1.8 second lead that he's got, and 10 minutes now left on the clock. There is Bradley Kent, by the way, who is a couple of laps down after his various pit lane visits. He's just got past Alex Kite's car on the track, but Alex is not really at full pace, it must be said. And Paul, you've just spotted Mark Smith potentially was a non-starter.
Yeah, I didn't see him line up on the grid, so maybe that problem we've seen at the beginning of the first race has haunted him, and he's not been out. I have not seen that car, so yeah. Sorry, I was just pointing at things and hoping that you would say something.
No, we got there in the end. So Mark Smith then, unfortunately, not had the debut in the championship that he might have liked, but he, I'm sure, will be looking to make a return at some point in the future. Lead gap is over 2 seconds now, so Morgan is starting to fade, but he's lasted well into the second half of the race now before that started to happen, really. On our screens, we're seeing the battle between Hugo Cook and Will Butler. This is for 9th position then. Former rally driver Will Butler ahead of the youngest driver in the series, Hugo Cook. Green flag at the top of Hilltop there, which means there's a yellow flag up at the hairpin. I don't think we've lost anybody else.
That could be something to do with, and I don't want to get this wrong, but that's Hugo Cook's car that hasn't made it through the intermediate at 1, which is the entrance to the hairpin.
Did he flash through there? I wasn't quite sure. We'll see. Yeah, the tracker has been having him stuck at Sector 2 for a few laps, so I'm not sure how Jack Constable, race 1 winner, has stopped down at the Knickerbrook chicane. So Jack Constable with mechanical issues now. We did think this might happen, though, in this heat, that there might be he's getting going again now. So that was odd. Paul, thoughts?
Control on delete.
Yes, it did sort of seem a bit that way, didn't it? Right, second place battle, down to Cascades then. Alex Morgan defending now from Max Hart, who commits to the inside. What a move from Max Hart. That is a really difficult place to make a clean overtake, and he made it look easy.
Shocking. That was shocking. I'll tell you what, when you shock someone like that and you look in the mirror, they're there 1 minute, then they're not the next. You just do not turn in, and that's exactly what Max Hart did. That was exceptional, and he needed to do it if he's got any chance now of cracking on and making some inroads. 2.5
seconds then, the gap to the race leader. 8 minutes left to try and close that 2.5 second gap. He's got to get away from Alex Morgan first, though. Alex trying to come back at him, and Max Hart is very, very, very sideways at the chicane, and back up the inside goes Alex Morgan at Knickerbrook corner. Hart's on the grass. That was really good reactions there from Alex Morgan, actually, to take advantage of the loss of momentum there from Max Hart at a corner, Paul, where we've seen him have a few moments already.
Yeah, exactly. And he has had I don't know what it is there. He seems to get either really close to the white line and pick up dirt, and it rotates the car around like we'd seen before, but that just over-rotated. Nothing to do with the brakes. You do not brake where he was, so something to do with the rear axle just not gripping. And Alex Morgan, I commend him. And a lot of people say it's not fair if you drive drivers off track. Yes, it is, because that is his racing line, and you cannot give an option to another driver coming back on track. As long as it's not dangerous and it's side to side, you give them an option of either coming out of it or driving across the grass. For me, that's absolutely fair. Spot on driving that by Morgan.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. And to have the reaction times to capitalise on that mistake as well was pretty special. Dan Kirby, by the way, being warned for track limits. Alex Kite was getting one of those warnings a few laps ago as well. So longer race late in the day. Concentration maybe starting to drop. There's another car running wide there. Will Butler, I think that was, out of Old Hall, who will probably get pinged now for exceeding those pesky track limits as well. 6.5 minutes then left in the race. Lewis Kent, you feel, has now probably had this race won for him by that battle behind him. 4 seconds is his advantage now over Alex Morgan second, Max Hart third, Dan Kirby fourth, Bruce Winfield fifth, and Andy Wilmot has an exclamation mark next to his name, which usually means he's got a penalty.
Yeah, and I said Cook had a problem somewhere, but like you said, the intermediate has been showing him doing something else, but he's at the back of this train in the black and white car, so I'm never ever again going to look at the TSL map.
I think he's got a dodgy transponder. I do seem to remember a message telling us that earlier on in the day, but we see lots of messages about dodgy transponders and things like that throughout the day, so...
that's usually the cheap teams.
Yeah, no comment. So Hugo Cook is very much still there, thankfully, despite what the live tracker is telling us. Nonetheless, though, if you fancy watching all of the live timing, do head to TSL timing, because you can get a lot of information there, which will give you a much better idea of what's going on in the race than you'll get if you just listen to us two. Into the pit lane has gone Alex Kite, by the way, so issues, I'm afraid, for that Italian Opel Astra, which he and the team really are still trying to get their head around this weekend, it must be said. Bradley Kent, meanwhile, this is not for position, but he's caught Hugo Cook now. Such is his pace. It's such a shame that Brad had those issues. I wonder what it was though, Paul, because the car is clearly fine. It's the fastest car out on track now, and it looks absolutely mega out on circuit.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So obviously something been changed. That's a disaster for Kite.
Yeah, shame as well, isn't it? Really lovely bloke, Alex Kite, and definitely sees a potential future in TCR Racing. I know he's looking at doing a full season next year. He's hoping to be around for the rest of this season as well. And Alex Kite, unfortunately, not enjoying the look, really, as he had a shunt at Castle Combe, and now mechanical issues here in a brand new car, keeping him out of contention. So Bradley Kent then moves up the inside of Hugo Cook, who doesn't really need to be getting in a fight here with Bradley. Lets him through. That wasn't for position. Bradley just unlapping himself there from some of the cars that are deep in the field. We're into the final 5 minutes now then, Paul, so we're into that extra 5 minutes that the drivers were getting all in a lather about between races, discussing how long this race was going to be. This is where the fatigue starts to show, not just for the drivers, but for the cars as well, and I don't think it's a huge surprise, really, that we're seeing 1 or 2 dropping out now.
Yeah, it does seem to be the way, even though, to be fair to Alex, he didn't actually look that stressed, did he?
He never does, though, does he?
No, he is from the Cotswolds area, I think, in Castle Combe, so yeah, the least stressed person in the world. Such a shame for him and his family. They were expecting big things, but, well, you can see these guys do not give up. It doesn't matter if they're at the back, at the front, they're having a little giggle, having a little track day to themselves. They still proper have a big old push at it, don't they?
I'll tell you what, Brad's about to pick up a place as well, because he's going to go past Alex Kite now to gain 12th position, and he's got at least 1, maybe 2 drivers ahead of him who aren't scoring points.
What a bounce through the... Did you see that? Through Old Hall. Picked up the apex. Sorry to cut across you. I honestly thought that thing was going to have 1 wheel left on it. That was like Del Boy's old Robin Reliant. Robin Reliant.
Have a lie down after this race, Paul. I think we need it. 3 minutes left on the clock then, and Alex Morgan and Max Hart are still less than a second apart as they head over Clay Hill once again. Lap 15 of the race, so we are getting deep into this one now. I mean, touring car races around here generally are only 15 laps, and they're going to get a couple of extra ones in this one. So don't get me wrong, it is hard work out there in this heat. The drivers, though, I think, by and large, have really handled it well, and we've not really seen a dip in driving standards as maybe they've got a bit hot and bothered towards the end of the race.
Yeah, this is the vital stage now, isn't it? The last 5 minutes of a 25-minute race, mechanically, mentally, physically demanding, but this could, this is one of the hardest places to come. You've got to be committed. There's, no room for runoff, and you really have to be on top of your game. But yeah, good to see them all still out there, and yeah, that should have been a little lunge, that mate. But obviously he's thought, nah, I don't want to smash inside of him if he's not really trying to pick up maximum points today.
5-second penalty, car 70. That's Will Butler for, guess what, track limits, and we've still got a couple of laps to go, so we might get to see a few more picking up penalties. I did spot out of the window then as well. It's getting mighty close for second place now. Alex Morgan and Max Hart, who are at the hairpin there, right on cue, nose to tail now then with a lap and a half to go. So Max has passed Morgan once already. The trouble is, the way that he got past Alex before was, as you said, one of those real shocking, surprising moves. But he's kind of shot his load now, hasn't he? He's kind of shown everyone what that move is going to be, and he's not going to be able to surprise Alex with that one again now, is he?
don't ever surprise me with what you just said again. That was absolutely shocking. Anyway, moving swiftly on, I apologise for the lead commentator saying something like that on a Saturday afternoon. Yeah, no, you're right though. But he's not going to score any points, Alex Morgan, so he just needs to sit back. He's not going to get past him, and he's not going to get to Lewis Kent. So, yeah, I would just sit behind him. The closer you are, the worse it'll be. Everything will heat up, and you could have some kind of, problem with the brake. So you've got to be steadier than that. There's no point in driving into the side of him and causing yourself a mistake or a bit of damage.
Yes, but there is a position to be had on track, and knowing Max Hart as I do, I think he probably will want to go for this then. Out of Lodge Corner they go into the final lap of the race. There goes Bradley Kent. He's found a way past Will Butler now. Now he's about to get past Jack Depper as well over Clay Hill. This again is not for position, but Jack Depper will put up a bit of a fight here. He's certainly squeezing Bradley Kent towards the pit wall as if it is for position, but Brad, I think, is going to just about squeeze through as he's over the curbs. Jack Depper doesn't really need to be fighting him in this way, but Jack again out there just to learn about touring car racing, and he's going to try and defend from everyone that he can.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, I've been really impressed by Jack Depper, because this is a big step up for him. And to do what he's done, I think he's excellent. So he's kept himself out of trouble. He's still battled, but it's really good. And what were you just laughing about then? As Adam Weaver from PMR text saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe that."
He's just supportive comments about the class and style of the commentary, I think. So that's what he's usually got to say to us. Lewis Kent, class and style, two words that do spring to mind with Lewis, it has to be said, in this race. An absolutely dominant performance. Yes, he started from the front row. Yes, he's the championship leader, so you expect him to be really, really quick, but this has been a flawless performance, and the checkered flag will now be waiting for him. Alex Morgan is just about going to hang on to second place, but it is Lewis Kent who crosses the start-finish line to win once again in the championship and extend his championship lead even further now, and that could prove to be a really, really important one. We're running out of races in this championship now for others to take points out of him. Second place goes to Alex Morgan, third place Max Hart. Dan Kirby is now coming across the line, whilst Hugo Cook is going to have one more go at getting past Will Butler. Can't do it into Lodge Corner, takes the wide line in, tries to get the exit there in the Audi. He has had a good exit from Lodge, but the start-finish line is going to come up a bit too short, I think, and Will Butler will just about hang on to the position that was 8th place for him, 9th Darren Lewis, and 10th position for Hugo Cook. And that was the completion of a very, very entertaining race there, it must be said, and Lewis Kent with a pretty perfect performance, honestly. And Max Hart, as we've said, will finish third on the road but score second place points because Alex Morgan does not score points in the championship as a non-championship regular. So for Hart, he's only going to lose 3 points total to the championship leader. Fastest lap, of course, went to neither of them. That went to Bradley Kent. And a shout out to Brad as well, because that was a really, really good performance from him, even though he ended up finishing laps down, but the pace that he showed after they sorted the issue was commendable. Lewis Kent then with the win, Alex Morgan second, Max Hart in third, then Dan Kirby and Bruce Winfield, Jack Depper, Andy Wilmot, Hugo Cook, Will Butler and Jack Constable to round out the top 10, just ahead of Bradley Kent in 11th, and then Alex Kite and Danny Crevet were our two non-finishers. Crevet off at either the hairpin or Druids, we weren't entirely sure where he got to, and Alex Kite pulling into the pit lane with some sort of a problem. So that is your Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK action for the day done. I hope you've enjoyed the racing. It's been a really, really brilliant pair of races once again, and we now move into the final two events of the season as we move to Anglesey next, and then the grand finale at Donington, which is always a really exciting way to round out the season. And the Donington Park circuit produces some of the best touring car racing in the country, so be sure to tune in or make the drive down there if you're here at Alton Park today to Donington Park. It's only an hour and a half or so away, and hopefully we should have a championship decider for you there, although actually, the way the points are now, Lewis Kent could mathematically win the championship with a round still to go. So that's going to be interesting, but we've had situations like this before. I think back to the very first season of TCR UK when Dan Lloyd dominated the early part of the year, and it really looked like he was going to win the championship with maybe multiple rounds to spare, and it still ended up going down to the final meeting at Donington. So I think there is a chance that we're going to see the championship still go right down to the very very wire. So Paul O'Neill then is headed down into pit lane. He's about to have a chat with our race winner. And Lewis Kent will be a very happy race winner, I would imagine. Lewis then with his 3rd win of the year, which does now mean that he's won 1 more than his brother. But Lewis is still dropping more points than Brad. And of course, this race now will probably go down as a drop score for Brad, won't it? So he's going to earn back the 16 points that he was previously dropping for what was his 2nd worst result, the other one being just the 1 point that he scored at Silverstone for 10th place. That very first race, which we actually mentioned earlier on, where he had a puncture having started on the front row of the grid. So Bradley Kent, in a way, the drop score's coming back to help him a little bit. There's the iconic lodge down at Lodge Corner, Alton Park, looking absolutely splendid, it must be said, in the summer sunshine. And the famous lodge still standing. Used to be white, of course, back in the day. Looks an awful lot nicer now in its traditional sandstone colour. And great to see that Motorsport Vision have continued to keep the Alton Park circuit looking as magnificent as always. Right then, Paul O'Neill, I believe, is almost ready to have a chat with the race winner, Lewis Kent, who is down there with him now. Over to you, Paul.
And Lewis Kent winning the race, mate. Oh, my word. What a win.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Coming into the weekend, we've had clutch problems all weekend. We've got a slight crack in one of the seals, which keeps on dropping oil on the clutch. So every time I change up, I have to lift off and it slips. So, yeah, bit of a problem. But, yeah, to pull it off that, it's... it shows the true pace we have, you know. We've shown that as a team we've come a long way from where we started. As you just seen then, we've shown that we can pull away, and from boys who have won Europe as well. But yeah, over the moon. Can't believe we've come away with a win this weekend.
Yeah, proper stuff that, and I'm glad you said that about Alex Morgan, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Alex Morgan, good driver, single-seater background, tin top championships all over the world. Come into it, that's where I expect him to be on the pole. I know the difference in weight and things like that, but in the races, you boys shone through.
Yeah, no, exactly. You know, I've raced against Alex before in Europe, so we've known each other, and I've raced him over here as well. So no, it's great for us. It just gives us a bit more of a boost and more points to my championship. You know, I think I've extended my lead from Max even more. I had that first race where I was 1 place behind him. This race I'm 2 places in front. So. Yeah, this one's going to be celebrated, especially with a broken car. So, yeah, no, very, very happy with it.
You're going to change your seals, and I don't mean the ones from the sea.
Yeah. Hopefully by where is it next? Anglesey, we should be up and running and back to normal pace.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, it's been spot on. Good weekend. We go to Anglesey. I'm sure you'll do it again.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, and one last question. What happened with your passenger door? Do you know about that?
Oh, yeah, no, I did see that open, so I thought I'd give it a nice right, nice left, and slam it shut, and I thought, yeah, that would do. And as soon as I saw it shut, I was like, yep, carry on now, because I was very worried that I was going to get a mechanical flag, but then I sat there and thought, there's no one around me, so they can't put a mechanical flag. I'm not in danger to anyone. But yeah, I thought I'd slam it shut anyway.
Wow. And your brother, what happened with him? Do you know?
Not a clue.
Okay. Bothered?
No.
All right, mate, I'll let you go.
Thank you
well
very
done,
much.
brilliant
Cheers.
weekend. Spot on, I thought that was pretty cool. What a race weekend we have had. Anyway, listen, it's been grand. Let's go back to Andy, see what he's got to say.
Yep, thanks very much, Paul. Then that does wrap up our racing action here from Alton Park. Then, as I said, the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK are back at Anglesey in a few months' time, and that is set to be an absolutely brilliant weekend of racing before they head over to the finale at Donington. Looking good for Lewis Kent to possibly become the first ever double TCR UK champion, but we'll have to wait and see if he's able to keep this run going to the end of the season. We'll see you at Anglesey next time out.